Hey, Cassandra, how are you?
I'm good, Grant. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. I'm really excited to talk to you because it's always nice when I have these podcasts. I always do a pre-call and to get to know the story of my guest, and it's really cool that our paths have kind of aligned because we're from the same area, but you're actually on the other side of the United States right now, and I'm in San Francisco. But it's just really cool to have you on my show to talk about your athletic mindset, kind of your journey, how you got into rowing and got into coaching. And we're going to talk about your company, Power of Three, which is really cool. So I'm really excited to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. No, it was great to meet you a couple weeks and see how our very similar paths and yeah, just come all together.
Awesome.
Connections.
Exactly. Well, let's get into it because I know when we first talked, we had a lot of great thoughts on just mindset, but mental toughness. So when you think about being mentally tough, what does that mean to you?
It's interesting that you say that because I feel I just did a 30-minute assessment on the rowing machine yesterday, which my colleagues and I do once a month. We're trying to stay fit and active, and we're still training to race when that opportunity comes. And I was telling my colleague, I wish I knew 25 years ago what I know now. And that
Mm,
is to not, whatever life is happening to you at the moment or whatever fears that you have, that when it's still time to assess, you have to just put that aside and be in the moment and test your body to everything that you've trained to do to that date. So you have an idea of how to continue on with your training and where you compare yourself instead of thinking this is everything and I'm going to just fall over and I'm losing everything. And so I realized that in that moment, when I've had a really excruciating month of January, and I teach 4 hours in the morning before I sit down and do this test, that, all right, well, here we go. We just have to do it here. Just sit in the moment, just see where you are. And, sure thing that I'm still within that range of where I should be. But the toughness is just kind of letting go and not overthinking it and just allowing the body to do what the body's supposed to do, and then having minimal short conversations with yourself throughout the process of it. And 25 years ago I couldn't do that. I didn't know how to put that aside, because I was so thinking about, well, what if I can't keep up with the other people? Or what if what if I'm going to fly and die or do anything like that? So
mm,
I would say to me, like mental toughness is compartmentalization. How do you be able to allow the body physically to do what it's capable of doing, and then allow the mind to let the body do what it needs to do, having these short conversations with yourself.
mm. Yeah, like what I'm hearing is it's like it's trust, like in the moment,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Instead of
that's exactly
overthinking
it.
it and what if, it's just, trust all your training.
That's exactly it. Trust what you are doing and what you continue to do.
Totally. Now, we're going to get
Mm.
into, you know, I say your sport. I know that you've, as an athlete, you played a lot of sports, but when we talk about the sport of rowing, um, people can just look at, hey, you're just rowing a boat. Well,
Mm.
I know this, and I've had people on my podcast that it is tough to do.
Mhm.
So, what does it look like in the sport of rowing to be mentally tough? What are some of the things that a rower has to deal with and that has to like push through to be mentally tough?
I think the first thing is that rowing is a racing sport. That's the big thing. It's as you want to get to from A to B as fast as you can. And so it's, you get out of the gates, it's like swimming, it's like a track, cross country, you want to be first across the line. And so I think with this uniqueness of this sport, there are a lot of variables. One, you are sitting in a boat, sometimes by yourself, sometimes with others. Can you match with the people who you are in the boat with? If you're by yourself, that's it. You're the only person moving the hull.
Right.
Secondly, can you keep the boat? Can you sit in the boat without flipping over, in the water? Can you get across the finish line without going in the water? So there is the part of being in the boat, sitting in the boat, understanding how to move the boat, and then feeling the adrenaline of the work that the body is putting into to making that whole move. And then the mental part of, am I going to sustain what I'm about ready to go after? And
Mm,
so there are a lot of components I feel that come into this, as which was different from when I was running cross country in my early days in high school, that I had nothing. It was like the gun goes off and you just go as fast as you can. But I think if you keep it simple and you love to race, all the physical components of how to move the boat and the technical part come very easy, because in the end, it is a racing sport and you just want to go as fast as you possibly can.
right,
So
right.
hopefully that helps a little
No,
bit.
totally. Well, and also, when you think about other sports, like swimming, I mean, obviously swimming and you're racing, I believe, maybe it's just me, but it's, you know, waking up at 6 in the morning and jumping in a cold pool, right? That's doesn't seem fun at first, right? And I believe in your sport as well, that you have to wake up early to get in the water. That takes a little bit of mental toughness too.
It does, it does, and there are, I actually rode all through college in the morning, trained, with the national team in the morning, so I was very used to those early mornings. And the funny thing is that especially when it's freezing, it's you don't we don't wear gloves when we row. We would have these things that would cover our hands called pogies, but still we don't wear gloves. So you just think about the how when the temperature outside is so cold and your hands are just frozen and you're just trying to get connection to this oar handle. To me, that would be the most excruciating.
I
But
bet.
other than that, the joyful part is watching the sunrise,
Yeah.
and then sometimes in the evening when we would have practice, watching it set.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Awesome. Well, can you share a specific time, like whether if it was in your athletic career or coaching, where you had to be mentally tough? Can you share like a specific time?
Yes, I can actually. I can think of one journey in my athletic career that I was actually the alternate with the U.S. national team in 1998. And so, as the spare, you know, it's a tough job. You are kind of on pins and needles, and you never want anything bad to happen to anybody, but you're also waiting for a door to open that you may have the opportunity to race. And I would say for that journey that summer, as soon as I was selected to be the alternate, was probably the hardest 30 days of my athletic career, because every day I showed up to practice trying to just push the body, stay fit, stay healthy, never knowing if I was going to get to the starting line. And there was a day that one of the other athletes did get injured, but she wasn't a sculler. She was a sweep oar. So within 36 hours, I was reminding myself how to sweep again. And I had an opportunity, and then that got shut down. So to just keep my head above water and keep thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Where's the light at the end of the tunnel? Um, it was a strength that I just had to find, that no matter what the end is, there's a reason why I'm doing all of this, and it's just to show up and keep pushing and pushing. Lots of crying, I can say that. And then we got to the world championships in Germany, in Cologne, Germany, and literally the week of racing, 2 days before the heat started, something did in fact happen to one of the athletes in my category in that boat, and I got the call, and I sat in the boat and we won a silver medal. And it was a
Wow.
testament of, you talk about on that day sitting at the starting line, that it's funny, they, looking at the video back, everybody's really focused, they're super serious, and I actually have this huge smile on my face, because I realized that this week of racing cannot be any more tough than what I had to go through to get to that seat. And so
Mhm.
I just knew that I was going to relish every moment of racing that I possibly could, because I knew what I had to go through to get to where I was that day. That, as my father would say, that journey definitely thickened my skin in a lot of ways, of being patient, of being humble, um, and just persistent.
Yeah. That's a beautiful story. It's honoring the process even when you don't know where the process is going to take you, right?
Yeah, that's
And
exactly it.
and I always say this to all my athletes is it's be ready, stay ready. You just do. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be ready. You have to stay ready.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a woman who actually I wrote in my book, Marielle Zaginis, who at I don't know where she is right now in the world in the sport of fencing, but in 2004 she wasn't even supposed to be a part of the Olympic team, and she ended up just right before the Olympics got put on as an alternate. And then the night before, there was an athlete that something I think that an athlete got hurt, and so she ended up being in the Olympics. She ends up getting gold. She comes out of nowhere. No one's ever heard of
You just
her.
got goosebumps.
Yeah. And then from that moment on, she was number one in the world all the way into the next Olympics, and she
Wow.
got gold again. And it was
Wow.
just like, how do you get prepared for the unknown? You got to be ready and stay ready.
Yep. Yeah. And it is true. Like the opportunity will present itself when the time is right. But you're 100% right on, you know.
Totally. Totally. Well, I believe that there's a lot of like everyone has a really cool story on how they got connected to their sport or what motivated them to get connected to their sport. And again, talking to you previously, like your story is pretty cool. How did you get into the sport of rowing?
It is kind of a funny sport. I actually grew up with athletes in an athletic family. My mom wasn't an athlete. She just had very good common sense. She still does have very good common sense. But my older brother was a really good pole vaulter and became a really good surfer. And so just his agility, his athleticism was just amazing. And my father played basketball in college and was an athletic director at Jefferson High School in Daly City, taught at San Francisco City College, just tennis, basketball, etc. And I ran track and cross country at Mills High School in the Bay Area and loved every moment of it. And I didn't realize how much I needed sport until I got to college, when I knew that I was not going to run at Sacramento State. It was just a Division I, really good track and field cross country program. I just knew that that wasn't where I was, and I got it. But what I finally realized the 3 weeks in my first semester, my freshman year, is how unorganized my life became without the daily routine of athletics. And from a person who is completely type A and OCD of being super organized to not having the structure in her daily routine, I became like the Tasmanian devil. Everything just blew up. And
Mhm.
so I was lost, and I realized I need to go find cross country again. And at that time, UC Davis was actually D2 athletics, and that was actually my first choice of wanting to go to college. So I said, great, I'm going to transfer. I'm going to do well in school and transfer next semester. I went home. I had the plan. I told my dad, this is the situation. I'm losing my mind. I have nothing. I need to transfer to Davis. And at that time, he actually just got the mail, and he hands me this flyer, and he says, well, why don't you try this? And I said, well, what the hell is this? He said, it's rowing. I said, yeah, but what the hell is rowing? And he said, just call the number and go figure it out. He knew that there was something in it, but he just said, just go figure it out. So long story short, I end up 3 weeks late to the party at the aquatic center, and Bob Whitford, who was actually the rowing coordinator at the time, scary tall man. I was 3 weeks late, and I showed up the first day, and I said, I realize I'm late. My father told me to come check this out. I ran in high school. I'm just looking for something to do right now. And he said, oh, great. Well, we're doing this 3-mile timed run today. Just, hop right in and we'll go from there. And I said, oh, okay. So I joined the party, did the run. I crushed everybody on the run. I came back. I had a huge smile. I said, great, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be back. And that was the end of it. Not even knowing what the sport of rowing was. I just beat everybody on the run, and that was enough for me to come back.
Oh, that's awesome. It's funny how we like get into certain sports, and you and I talked about this because Susan Franzia. I remember her story where she was a basketball player in high school. Well, she was okay, but when she went to University of Penn and decided not to play sports anymore, she like literally majored in what she said partying, and just felt like after her first year was just like same thing. Like I feel a little lost. I need to get this routine back, and she just saw a flyer that was like, hey, try out for the rowing team. So she's like, hey,
Mhm.
okay, I'll be in a boat. That sounds cool. And she had no clue. And then she realized like after the tryouts and she made the team that she had a gift.
Yep. So fun, so
Yeah.
fun. And so basically right now I blame my father for the last 30 years of my life. I just said, just remember, you were the one that handed me the flyer.
Right. Right. Well, when you think about all the athletes that you've coached at the D1 level and beyond, when you think about the mental game, like what do you think is the main ingredient to have, or ingredients to for an athlete to have a strong, unstoppable mental game?
I think the one thing that you cannot teach in an athlete, and you know that you have some gifted athletes. I mean, teaching in general, I love, but when it comes to the ones who are looking to excel and move, you can't. y- There's this crazy gene. Like you just know that these athletes show up every day. They want to learn more. They want to strive. You just can't teach that grit, or it's just a natural instinct when you see some of these athletes that come. And I have seen it on the high school level, and I have been like regular high school level. I have seen it on the U19 level as well as the college level. And I think what there's a stubbornness. You are it's their greatest strength, yet it also could be their Achilles heel. And the strength is that they want to continue to learn, they want to continue to strive, they want to continue to excel. But their weakness is that they are afraid to fail, and they are afraid to disappoint. And so I think when you kind of in the process, what I've learned is I've taken some of these athletes that who have all those strengths and struggle with those Achilles heels to them. I've tried to balance that out and allowing them to say part of that failure is going to be part of your success. But I can't teach the kind of push I want to give you. You already want to push yourself, you know?
Right.
And then there's the total opposite athlete who doesn't even know what that push is until you open the front door for them and you provide the skill set for them and the structure of what organization is, what preparation is, what training is, and you watch them strive. And all of a sudden, they build this confidence like, wow, I am totally capable of doing that. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers their question a little bit.
Well, no, I think it does because you know I don't care who you are. If you're competing, whether if you're a coach or an athlete, we all want to be successful. Hands down. Who wants to show
Mhm.
up like on game day and then not be
Mhm.
successful? We all
Yeah.
want to be. But we also have to have a relationship of what does success look like? What does it feel like? But also with failure,
Mhm.
because or mistakes. It depends on how you look at
Mhm.
failure. So it's teaching these athletes to have a relationship with failure and to look at it. Is it a negative emotional pull, or is it actually an opportunity? Is it a
Yeah.
stepping stone? Right. So, and I think that's what really at the core of it, when athletes don't have that relationship with failure, and it can hold them back a lot. And it not
Mhm.
only can hold them back in the moment, but if they don't know how to let go of it or get a lesson from it, then they hang on to
Yeah.
it for days and weeks and the whole
Yes.
season, and it just destroys them. So
Yes.
like, how do you coach that? How do you like, what are some of the conversations you have around failure?
One of the things, ironically enough, the group of juniors that I work with just had a 2,000-meter assessment a week ago, and we had a couple athletes that improved their score a little bit, and then we had a couple that didn't. And I walked around each one of them, and the 2 days prior, I said, okay, make sure that you come ready, knowing the number that you want to achieve, knowing your plan. What's your plan
Okay.
of attack? Go back and do your homework to the training that you did. And so some of them just, I assume I could go this. So I went after it. And a colleague of mine gave this great analogy, talking about racing, saying, do you like going to the movies? And I said, yeah, we love going to the movies. And I said, well, watching somebody take a 2,000-meter erg assessment is like, you're going to the movies. A good movie is when you don't know how the ending's going to go. You're in the moment, you're watching,
Yeah.
and then you're just like, wow, I didn't see that come. But if they're going to go out as fast as they can, not at the pace that they should, well, you know how the movie's going to end. And so you're like, well, I know how the story is going to end. So I think one of the things that we talk about in failure is I like looking at their profile of racing. And it's not just the result, it's how you got the result and what do you need to improve to get to the result that you want to. And so we talk about that. And I said, well, listen, you went out this hard and I already knew how it was going to end. What made you go down that path? Did you actually go home and think about, well, no, I didn't. Okay.
Right.
And so interesting enough, I said, we talked about there's this foundation that you actually have to hit the cement a couple times hard in order to then stand back up and regroup. And funny enough, they're going to have another kind of assessment next week, but this week coming into training, I have never seen, and again, when I say diverse 8 athletes, boys and girls, you have a
Mm.
range of like just diverse 8 athletes, came and executed practices amazingly, just understanding the training, the numbers, the pacing, the breathing. And we talked about that. I said, this is what you prepare for to assess. Your assessment should never be a surprise. You should have a pretty good idea. But then the next part of that assessment is the racing part. There is the training piece that you're prepped to, but then the racing part becomes this mentality of what can I then gear into in my next psyche part of this. So it is interesting to see how they have been able to fail, come back, not afraid, and get back to working again and learning from that. So I'm very excited to actually see them assess next week.
Awesome. Awesome. And, and you talked about this earlier about preparation, and this is where I want to have you talk about your company, Power of Three, which you get people prepared and you have them
Yes.
understanding like the importance of preparation. So share with my listeners your company, Power of Three, and what motivated you to create this company.
Well, sometimes, you don't wake up one morning and say, hey, I'm going to plan a company. That's really not how the story kind of went. The story, I had a very lovely 3 years coaching at the University of Pennsylvania, and I decided it was time to exit and go back to the roots of wanting to teach and do the 80,000 things I was doing before. And that was doing fitness camps and working with high school kids and coaching adults. I just had a variety of stuff. Um, I was hoping at one point my husband and I were going to collaborate and work together, and that was kind of the plan moving forward. But unfortunately, life happens, and the situation at hand wasn't going to allow us to work together. So you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard plate, and you're thinking, okay, well, I just passed up a few lovely jobs. This opportunity didn't happen. So what am I going to do? As I'm twiddling my thumbs and thinking, what's the next step of my life? Well, I think to that point in my life in 2015, I had a pretty extraordinary opportunity of a career so far as a physical education teacher, high school coach, working with the U19 national team, coaching collegiately at the Division I level, coaching masters. And since I was a little girl growing up with athletics in my family, growing up, my father always told me about, the 3 Ps. And I said, well, what are the 3 Ps? And he said, prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance. And my grandfather was captain of the Merchant Marines, and it's a military phrase. And it was instilled in my head since I was a little girl. And every athlete I started to coach since the age 22 and it was instilled with me as an athlete. I incorporated to them. I said prior proper planning. They would talk to me about, oh, my dog ate my homework, or I forgot my gloves, or I didn't have the right running shoes. And I'm like, all right, prior proper planning. You got to think ahead. You got to be organized. You got to communicate. And so, to ironically enough, to give a little credit to Susan Franchi, who, when I started this company, she said, what does prior proper mean to you? And it
Yeah.
does: organization, communication, professionalism. And so that was the trait that stamped of all the things I wanted to embody, with regardless of how old you were, the demographics, where you lived. I wanted to teach that to the people, what it meant to me, what it taught me, and how to just kind of pay it forward to how I was raised. I was never one to reinvent the wheel. I felt very gifted that I had parents who were level headed, who taught me all the things that I needed to learn as a student athlete, as an elite athlete. And so I just wanted to pay that common sense forward to everybody else. So
Yeah.
there became Power of Three: prior proper planning.
I love it. It's funny. It brings me back. It was last year, I think it was. I brought in Anisha Curry, who is the only female coach in men's D1 basketball. She's assistant coach for University of Maine. And I brought her in to talk to one of the teams that I was working with. And, one of the athletes asked her, like, with confidence, how do you gain confidence? And she's all, preparation. She goes, what happens, like, if you lose your confidence in the middle of the game? Trust your training, trust your preparation. And she just kept on saying preparation,
Mm.
preparation. And
Yep.
I think it's really true. When you do enough reps of anything, whether if it's speaking or if it's your sport, but you've actually connected with your craft, you put in the time and you prepared, and you got to trust that whatever you do the day of the game, you're not going to get that much
Yeah.
better, right? You just got to trust
No.
your preparation.
No, and it is, and it's like, on game day, some people would say on race day when I was running, "Hey, try out these new running shoes." And I said, "No, no, no, I'm gonna wear my old scraggly running shoes, because those are the ones I've been training in, and then I'll
Yeah.
break in the new ones." But absolutely, I think the preparation of just knowing that you can attack it and it's nothing different. I think that's the thing that I'm trying to teach the athletes now, which I wish that I realized 25 years ago, that it isn't different. It's just a different day with a different opportunity, but it is really the same thing you've been doing over and over again.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to bring this up too, just because, you and I we're coaching athletes and during the pandemic. And so with the pandemic, there's been just so many different dynamics that we've all had to deal with as an athlete and as coaches. From your perspective, like, what are some of the things that are showing up that didn't think you had a coach during this time, or if any?
Oh, well, I would say it really depends. For the 8 athletes that have the opportunity that come to the schoolhouse 3 times a week, I think they are super blessed, because and grateful, because they have an opportunity to be around others and train
Mm,
in a very social distance space. But I would say the thing that's most challenging from what I hear for them is obviously the distance learning, the Zoom, sitting at home all day, and not even being able to then join their teammates, and and a practice, once a day, and gathering all those social skills back, of just communicating and being present and being, in the moment with everybody. But I think, here, there's a reason for everything. And as scary and as unnerving this pandemic has been, I always believe that there's a silver lining for everything. And I think one of the things that these young athletes are going to learn moving forward is the appreciation of showing up to practice and being ready to be in the moment of practice. Appreciate their fellow team members who are there and that they can talk to. Appreciate leading by example. I believe things that I think might have taken for granted before that they didn't see that they will see moving on. So
Mm. You know, I mean, you make all the points are great. I mean, like I see the same thing too. I think at the end of the day, it's these athletes, no matter if it's high school, youth, high school, or collegiate and above, it's about connection. And not
mhm,
only about connecting with their team and the energy with other humans, but connecting with their craft, their sport.
yeah,
And I've had some athletes that question, why am I doing all this work for? I don't even know if I'm gonna have
mm,
a season. I said, well, you
yeah,
to be honest with you, you don't know if you're gonna be playing because you might have, coach might have a different game plan. You don't know a lot of things.
yeah,
So, and I've kind of revisited a quote that I wrote about is we're all working towards something
mhm,
into the unknown. Like, so
yep,
we're working our ass off to get better, but we don't know what tomorrow is. We don't know
yep.
what coach is going to do. We just don't know. We don't know if the season's going to start or end. So it's about just staying connected, staying connected.
It is staying connected, and I also think teaching them about the importance of physical fitness and health, and being able to, all the athletes that I work for that are looking to be collegiate athletes right now and are thinking, well, I don't have a race season, so what is the coach going to want? Well, the coach is going to be looking for, are you making this happen? Meaning that, are you taking the ownership?
Mm.
Are you still training, running, getting to a machine, sitting on the machine? What are you doing to show these coaches that you want to be a collegiate athlete, or that you in fact really do need sport? And I think that's the biggest thing, which I always say, not do you want sport or what do you want, but why do you need it? And that came back to the beginning when I left high school and went to college and was missing those 3 weeks, that I realized I didn't want it. I actually, in fact, needed it. And I needed
Mm.
it for all the purposes of the connection, the social, the organization, the time management. So I think that's hopefully opening up these young high school eyes, especially even college athletes, to say, wait, what am I doing this for? Oh, in fact, I do, like you said, need that connection.
Yeah. And I talk about this a lot on the show. We all know this, you and I, being an athlete, being a coach, you get so much from sport or sports, period. Again, communication skills, leadership skills, being competitive, understanding how to deal with losses and winning and all that stuff. So when you think about, because you just talked about all the things that resonated with you, especially when those 3 weeks that you weren't competing,
Mm.
if you were to go back to your athletic career, what do you think is that one thing that you got from rowing that's made you a great coach now?
Humility.
Mm.
I would say humility and patience.
Yeah.
I think the ability to put myself out there every day, ready to be critiqued, ready to be criticized, um, and brought me to what I loved about coaching on the same level. And then just the patience of the process, as we talked earlier. And that, ironically enough, over almost 25 years now that I've been coaching, I look back and I think it's almost been 20 years ago that I started my big first high school job at Sarah High School in California,
Mm.
that I laughed that the athletes who connect with me today, they say, wait, you don't do this or you don't do that. I said, listen, I was a young buck, back in the day, and patience is a virtue. And let me tell you, I did not have any patience. And I still, that's one thing I am on the struggle bus every day still, is with patience. But I know how to harness it and I know how to handle it better when I'm talking now with athletes and parents.
Mm.
So,
You know what's great? I just finished this, and I'll just show it. It's this book, and it's Practicing Peace by Pema Chodron, and I've been doing this work for a long time, not only as an athlete, as a coach. And what I got from this book about practicing peace, it talks about patience and how patience it's literally, if you want to be present, like because we talk about it all the time, like be
mhm,
in the moment, be in the here and now, be be present, play present. The only way you can get to that moment of being present, you have to be patient with yourself.
Mhm.
And therefore, when you are patient, then there's actually a level of peace there as well.
Mhm.
So when I think about now, like when I'm talking to athletes, like let's get present. Well, let's get patient. Let's get patient,
Yeah.
and we can train that real quick. How we can just get patient real quick and
Mhm.
get in the moment. So I love that. So listeners
Gotta
can check
pass
it out.
that, yeah, pass that along. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a very good one. Mhm.
So reflection, we talk about, I talk about this a lot on the show. Reflection, we talk about getting 1% better. We want to gain wisdom. Uh, we have to reflect. That's how we get better. We look at our performances, our training. So when you think about reflecting on your whole career as an athlete, as a coach, what do you think you've learned the most about yourself?
Um, that's a really, really good question. I think I think the thing I've learned most about myself is that I one of my gifts and the thing that I see now over the course of over almost 35, 40 years is I love bringing people together. And that's what embodies the company. It is about connecting people. And I love bringing people together. How we were connected. We were connected through a colleague that both you and I worked with his daughter, who I had the ability to work with. And I think there's a real gift. And I think community and connection are two of my most important foundations of who I am as an athlete and a coach and a company owner. And I will continue to strive with that because there is a beauty in watching and having people come together who've never met and have this connection and then able to build that, new relationship and flourish. And I think with the honor of sport, I've been able to create that, and it it's awesome. It's a beautiful gift, and I'm really pleased that I can give that gift.
Yeah. I love it. I love seeing. I mean, obviously, I grew up my whole career in team sport, but when you can, as a coach, when you can connect energies, right, synergies, energies, but when you can see the frequencies, like especially when people are really like they're dialed in, they're locked in,
Mhm.
and you're part of that process. It's a really cool feeling,
Mhm.
real cool feeling. So how can my listeners learn more about the power of three, connect with you, and just understand more of your journey?
Well, they can learn more about me by going to www.priorproperplanning.com, and that's
Mhm.
the website where they can learn all about Power 3. And you can be anywhere in the country. We can connect, and there's obviously this magical thing of virtual Zooming now. So,
Right.
and when that's all done, I will be more than happy to get on a plane and fly to anywhere else. You will learn about all the nooks and crannies of what the company has to offer, and if my email's up there, my phone number's up there, so you can dial in, and hopefully, we'll learn more about what you're looking for.
All right. Well, Cassandra, thank you so much for just sharing your mindset and your journey, and what you're doing to affect athletes right now. It's a treat, man. I really appreciate it.
Grant, it was great. I look forward to seeing where you end up and moving south and all the things I'm super excited for you. And thank you so much. It's been a great honor.
Awesome. You bet.